Hello everyone, welcome to the explanation part of this video. Alright, so there's a few things I want to go over. Number one, the blast chamber system, and number two, the wither cage system, and number three, basically how to use the farm, and will this work in newer versions. Alright, so the first thing I want to do is show off how to use the farm. So let me just flick this lever. This piston signifies this farm is turned on. All you need to do is walk over here, choose your favorite tree type, either spruce, birch, or jungle, and you can plant your tree, and it will completely harvest the farm, as you can see. And it will give every single sapling back. So, eventually, each sapling will be moved towards the player, no matter what, and you get enough saplings for even jungle trees. This crushes every single leaf inside the tree, except for these two, and this right here. You can modify this farm to work right here, but I got bored and lazy, so, yeah, that's also something. For those who do not want birch, jungle, or spruce, there is an acacia switch for you to enable the acacia mode of this farm, where you can plant a tree, and it'll formally harvest the acacia tree. It's fully reliable, as far as I know, and if it isn't, please report that, because as far as I know, it should be 100% reliable. I've tested it for 36 hours, and I haven't seen it break, but there might be some weird case where it's like 1 in a million chance. I don't know, and I just got super lucky. Another thing that you can show is this bone meal dispensing system, where it will move down this flying machine. So, yeah. This also does slow down the bone meal dispenser as well. So that's quite interesting. Alright, so both acacia and oak need the bone meal dispenser to be slowed down, because if they aren't, then the oak tree can grow in the middle of a harvest, because oak trees are big brain. And acacia trees, basically, because we have logs in right here for a short moment, the acacia tree can grow and break this system, which we dislike, and we do not want. That's why we slow down the bone meal. Alright, so when you grow a tree, it'll harvest it completely, as shown here, in about 26 game ticks, or about 1 second. It's about 1 second, so, yeah, each game tick is 1/20th of a second, so it's 1 second and 6/20ths of a second, basically. Yeah. If that makes any sense. So yeah. As you can see, harvest the entire tree, gets enough saplings back, you get the idea. Alright. There is going to be no tutorial, because this frankly would be too complicated and far too boring as a tutorial, because, well, it's a little bit large, especially for the blast chamber version. And the wiring is so dense and compact, and I'm horrible at tutorials, that it'll be very difficult for me to do this. However, there is a world download, and I'm going to be going through the main steps of the farm, so if it does break, you should know how to fix it. And if you do not know how to fix it, then please inform me and I will help you. Alright, so here's the general farm, as you can see. The main system is 2 game tick, okay, so the main system has a 2 game tick input delay, which is the same as my 2x3 spruce farm. It's based off of the same concept of when we push up this entire block column, it'll depower this rail instantly, and since then, it will take 2 game ticks to power this piston right here. And that is what we call 2 game tick input delay, because each observer is about 2 game ticks or 1 redstone tick. Alright. To put this in more an example, this thing is 13 ticks in terms of redstone ticks, and it is 38 game ticks in acacia mode, because acacia is a little bit slower because you have to harvest 2 logs per layer. Alright, so let's get more into depth about how the acacia mode works. So this is heavily modeled off of Fallen Breath's farm. As you can see, it has a very similar piston layout, as you can see. The only difference is I don't use a double piston extender here, while Fallen does. And the way I wire things and power things. Alright. So the first thing I want to go over is, how does acacia mode work? Basically, as you can see in the video, in the cinematic, the pistons right here will move forward like so. And these both pretty much move forward near enough the same time. Not quite the same time, but near enough. And then this would basically ensure that the 2 logs on either side will generally be at least 1 in the middle. That's why we can't just activate this one instantly and then 2 game ticks later or so activate this one. We can't do that because obviously it won't work. So to negate that, we work with this system. We pulse these 2, I think this one's 2 game ticks later, but it doesn't break the system since the observer right here already has 2 game ticks and it's already dealt with this observer. So then this line moves in, which would then ensure that there is still at least space for the next log. This piston would be here at this moment and push this back. And then, because this observer will power it, Then this wall moves in right here, and then 2 game ticks later, this observer will power it. So that will do the entire harvest. And then it slides back into place within around a few game ticks later. Alright. When I refer to game tick, I refer to 1/20th of a second. So if you get confused, that's what I mean. 1 game tick is half a redstone tick. So you could measure things as 3 game ticks as 1.5 ticks. So that's something. Alright. So that's how the acacia mode works, basically. We also need to make sure that the farm can harvest stuff like this, and stuff like this, and maybe that, and that, and that. And that's obviously a little bit more difficult. Okay, so the acacia mode is now currently on. Now it is. So give it a few seconds. Okay. And now I'm going to activate this block. And you should notice that every single block in here should be moved out, and you can see it right here. Alright, let's go. So as you can see the perfect logs right here. Shown by the iron blocks. And basically all these would be filtered through into the blast chamber system. And then we have a simple cutoff system which would move into our log converter into our TNT blast chamber. This blast chamber might look familiar. That's because it's the same one that Ray and I designed. Our concrete converter anyways. Yeah, it's based off of the same concept I got from Acheron River. So his channel is in the description, even though he might have not been the first to come up with this sort of idea. Still, he's in the description because it's the first place I saw it. Okay, so the TNT is aligned between this glass pane, which if you align it between this glass pane, it is put perfectly into a position where it'll be in between these 2 blocks and blow up this side and this side right here perfectly. Alright, and we do this because we just obviously want maximum rates and as best as possible, and get as much TNT efficiency as possible. It's also lowered down by 1 block to make sure that we explode more of the lower blocks down than the higher blocks. That way most of the items will fall down instead of being stuck on basically less chances of something like this happening. I would need to check with a concrete converter and see if we could optimize it that way and make it more TNT efficient, at least less loss, but yeah. Alright, you get the idea now? That is the general blast chamber version, and over here is the wither cage version, as you can see. So this wither cage is super simple. Alright, so this is the wither cage version right here. It's a little bit interesting. One thing I do want to note is if you activate the system, I have the withers dead right now because I just wanted to yeet them. Alright, so this wither cage does work in 1.16, at least it should technically. I would need to test it, but as far as I know it should work, because how it works is the 2 blocks right here would get put right here. It never touches the foot level of the wither, which is what breaks most wither cages. And it'll perfectly fix the farm and make sure that can never happen. If I really wanted to, I can modify it to where it will just never go in the feet in the first place. And it shouldn't be too difficult. I should, yeah, not really try too hard. This uses 2 withers because I was too lazy to make a 1 wither version, but honestly, it's not too big of a deal. It's not hard to find bedrock areas like this, and it's even easier to break enough bedrock because there's just less to break. I could go through the effort of making only 1, which it should probably work, but it'll be very difficult, and I don't feel like going through that effort. Not like many people are going to be using this in 1.16 anyways. And if you are, you probably have Dragon Egg bedrock breaking from carpet, so it should be very easy in the first place. And it's not that big of a deal to make 2. Alright. So, the wither cage version is as simple as possible. One thing to note is when you build this farm, you do not need any of the logs in the log converter. However, you do need at least 2 pillars in the farm. These 2 pillars right here that I have isolated, like so, these 2 pillars need to be here. This one needs to be here for when this piston finally does its retraction. It'll power through this obsidian and, you know, break the farm. Because if there's no log there, and then, well, if we have power this, then, well, whoopsie-doo, it breaks. Like, because of the way it's powered, it's, yeah, you get the idea. It's going to break. So you do need 2 logs right there. Otherwise, yeah, well, the farm is going to break. Another thing, right here, you do need logs right here as well. Because this is how you power the double piston extender to do the retraction of these logs right here as well. So that is also very important. Alright. Another thing, the farm is completely dustless. The only dust right here is right here. Only dust is right here. However, the dust does not go through any power level changes, therefore it is considered dustless, because there is no dust updates while the farm is running. Yeah, okay. And if you are planning on building this farm in 1.16, This entire system up here is completely useless. This system right here is very cool, in my opinion. It's locking repeaters, and I've never used locking repeaters in one of my farms before. And any of my redstone contraptions, in fact. Actually, I can place that redstone block right there. So I have never used locking repeaters in any of my farms before. However, this is actually quite useful. So when I actually love locking repeaters now after using this. It's a very useful tool. Alright, if I flip the Acacia switch, it will basically send a signal through here, which will disable or basically enable a system where it will, in short, it will slow down the bone meal dispenser clock. And you're probably wondering, why would I ever want to do that? So something like this. So this slows down bone meal dispenser clock right here. That wire right here. And the wondering why you're doing that is, like I said with oak trees, you need to slow down that bone meal dispenser clock. Otherwise, the oak tree can grow mid-harvest because oak trees are very big brain. So the farm could actually break. However, for acacia trees, we need that as well because there are logs right here in the chamber. Like right here, and then there might be a slight chance where there's pistons right here, and it doesn't get zero ticked instantly, so it can break. And that's exactly why we slow down bone meal clock. We basically disable it for most of the harvest, and then re-enable it. And during acacia mode, we do not need to do any different redstone, because the redstone's already kind of stolen off of this thing. So, first game tick, the reason, basically, this observer could still technically power this piston in any other mode. However, it will not because there's nothing to update the piston. That's all we need to do. We just need to retract this piston. And it's already wired since this specific one is updated first, but it relies off of this piston right here, this piston line right here, to be pushed down. And that is because it's easier for me to wire for acacia and less for me to do up there. So that's something. And then all we need to do is change the timing for this piston right here. Because this piston is related to the extension of this double piston extender right here. And I already explained why we want to delay that earlier in the why acacia mode works video portion. Alright. The next thing I want to show off, basically, the reason why we do that is, I already explained why. But back to the selector panel thing, it's probably a way better way of doing this, but if I select oak now, well, obviously, we don't want this thing to send a pulse, right? Like, right here, as you can see, the piston did not send a pulse. And you might be wondering, oh, why? Why don't you want it to send a pulse? The reason why we don't want it to send a pulse is obviously, if we send a pulse to the same exact observer line, then it will, like, break this system, because then if we activate oak and acacia at the same time, we'll just start off like that, and we don't want that, obviously. So I decided to use locking repeaters to do that. So if I then just disable acacia, this line doesn't activate. You can tell because this piston right here is still up. All right, and then when I activate oak, the line does power. I just thought that was a neat system. This line also goes through, and in the blast chamber version, it'll go through and activate the log converters and whatever. Other than that, though, there's not really much to go over. Acacia mode is a little bit more laggy. On my server, the server that I'm hosting locally, that's very bad. It has, like, dedicated, like, 0.5 gigs of RAM. It runs at, like, 7 ms, which is incredibly bad, especially for a farm like this. However, the 2x2 Spruce farm, which is lag-friendly and 10 MSBT, link in the description, on ProtoCMP anyways, it was 10 ms, ran at 50 MSBT on the server. So, basically, if that ran at 10 MSBT, then, the 2x2 Spruce ran at 10 ms, basically, and 50 ms on here, then just divide that amount, like the amount of ms I have now, which is like 7, and that has how much ms I get on this, on the Prototech CMP, which is pretty good. So, 7 divided by 5. So it's only like 1.4 MSBT, and that was for the blast chamber version, which is arguably laggier because it uses TNT to break it, and then I think the wither cage version was like 5 even, so it's a very lag-friendly farm. And basically will not even dent the MSBT, so that's great. Don't even, like, worry about running this on any server. This thing can run perfectly fine. Because it's so slow. And you might be wondering, yeah, but 16,000 logs an hour, very slow, of course. Yeah, it's slow for a tree farm. It's very slow for a tree farm. but yeah. Another thing I can go over is, yes, this farm can be much faster. Fallen Breath designed this exact farm, pretty much. However, he had 4 game tick input delay and a few other design choices that slow down the farm quite a lot. I'm pretty sure, anyways. I think he might have been 6 in game tick input delay. I don't know. He had a lot. This one only has 2. However, it comes at a cost of being less compact, because yeah, it's just less compact. And then I am very bad at making switches and like switching things over. So as you can see, the wiring is much bulkier than it could be. I'm sure anyone could compact this down to like in here, but I am not great at compacting things. However, the wiring is quite dense right here anyways. If you look at it, it's quite dense wiring. You can't really see anything. And yeah. One thing that could be made is maybe this farm's a little bit too not laggy, but not cost effective because it uses quite a lot of redstone blocks. And yeah, that makes sense. One thing you can do to save on cost is maybe doing something like this, and then placing redstone block right here, and that'll like pretty much half the amount of redstone blocks you have and need, right? You could do that. You totally could. And that'll, reduce a lot of the cost. You could do that if you want to, but I didn't do that in my design choice because I think redstone blocks are just better. And certain things right here, I do that, but that's because the Acacia switch just needs to do that. Yeah. Anyways, what else can I go over? Yeah, the Acacia switch, the Acacia mode is very, like, poorly designed, and the Acacia ran at 8 ms, or not 8 ms, yeah, 8 ms on this CMP, like I said, so it's nearing 2 MSPT on the Proto CMP, like I said. It's honestly, once again, you can run this on any garbage server, and yeah, you get the idea. Wiring is pretty dense. Even on here, I try to make the splash chamber as compact as possible, knowing that this is only 1 block wide, and then, yeah, get the idea. So it's basically as thin as possible. As thin as I could make it without, blowing up the pistons right here. It's actually as far away as it can be, but without blowing up the pistons. Even on max TNT distance. Alright, and then as you can see, the log converter is pretty simple. It's just a whole bunch of different layers and wires. And if you have any questions, put them down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. And if you, once again, have any questions, comments down below. Follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/activation1234. I stream every Saturday or Sunday. And whenever I can, pretty much on the weekends. And thank you guys. Alright, bye-bye.